Hi, I'm Brenda Murray, and this is Studio 56. And today we're going to be hosting a gorgeous demo by the amazing art instructor, Thomas Pajdlhauser. If you're new to Studio 56, you should know that in addition to hosting free interviews and free demos like this one, we also produce online workshops for artists and we organize gorgeous vacation workshops for artists, painting holidays, artist retreats. We still have tickets available to a few of our gorgeous vacation workshops coming up in 2025. We're going to be hosting a pastel workshop in Costa Brava, Spain in April with the amazing instructor, Brian Jernigan. We also will be hosting a watercolor workshop in the hilltop villages of Provence in April with Sebastian Thoman. And we will be in Bruges and Ghent in September with the amazing watercolor artist Hazel Sohn. And our big announcement is that we will be in Rhodes, Greece in September with Tom Pajdlhauser. So stay to the end and we will have lots more info about that. You can find out more about our vacation workshops and our online workshops at www.studio56boutique.com. And now, if you're not familiar with Tom, let me introduce him to you. Tom is a production designer who has been working in the animation industry for 20 years, primarily focused on environmental design and art direction. He's currently working on an upcoming animated feature film at Netflix. His work is heavily influenced by his love of sketching on location and the library he's built up in his head. He owns a skateboard shop in Ottawa for which he designs all their in-house products. Tom loves to travel and take art trips and to share the magic with others. So let's bring Tom into the call. Hey, Tom, good to see you. Hey, hi.
Hey, Brenda. Nice to see you as well.
Thanks so much for being so generous with your time and agreeing to do this demo for everyone. I know they're going to absolutely love it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I had fun doing it.
Okay, good. What will people see in the demo today?
Yeah, so it's how long is it? It's roughly just over 40 minutes long, and it's a start to finish simple demonstration of my sketching process. So it's in the studio, controlled light, none of the hustle and bustle of the streets, and I chose a simple subject matter which you won't be able to see, but if you want to follow along, folks are welcome to Google search the Hagia Sophia Grand Mosque in Istanbul, Turkey. It's a building that I'm familiar with. I've sketched it before, I think like back in 2012. And yeah, it's a beautiful piece of architecture, nice colors, simple enough to draw. And yeah, I'm gonna walk us through that process.
Cool. I'm so excited. All right, without further ado, let's get started. We'll turn off our cameras and we'll get started right now.
Awesome. Alrighty, so to kick things off, I always get started with blocking in a very rough composition and a little bit of proportion and perspective for my subject. I like to use a carpenter's pencil just because it's dull, it's small, it's a little janky, and it forces me to not overdraw in pencil. The reason I like doing that is because I don't want to draw the picture twice. Nobody has time for that, and I find I lose interest if I'm just kind of cleaning up a drawing. Yeah, I wanna stay loose, stay expressive. I want to use the pen as much as possible. But yeah, it is important. Over the years, I've learned to just kind of block in a rough composition of how I want my subject to exist on the page. That way, I don't trail off and end up with something that has like weird tangents on the sides of the pages. Yeah, so I don't want, like I said, I don't want to overdo it. Let's get some more minarets in there. Just enough. Just enough so that, while I'm drawing it, I don't have to think about how this piece lives on the page. And I think maybe just a little bit more, some of these domes down here. That'll be fun to kind of trail it down. Alrighty. I think that's it for our pencil. So yeah, I'm gonna grab my pen now. I like to use a fountain pen. This one in particular is a Striata from the Desiderata Pen Co. My buddy Pierre hand makes these in Chicago. I love these pens. They're reliable, they're beautiful, they feel nice. And yeah, this one's got a Zebra G Flex nib, and as you'll see from this demo, it's a fantastic dip pen nib that just gives you a lot of versatility and great line thicknesses. A couple splatters, things like that. It's like drawing with like a, I don't know, like a paintbrush that's also a knife at the same time. So I'm just gonna get this pencil out of the way. So yeah, let's get started here. All right, I'm gonna start with the main structure. And that connects to these pieces here. I'm not being too precious with the drawing. It is a sketch. I mean, it is unnatural for me to be working from photographs here, but you know, I'm doing my best. I do like the dynamic nature of being on site, but hard to do when you're halfway across the world sitting in your studio. Yeah, so this part, you know, this is where you zone out. It's kind of hard to talk through every little piece. As you can see, I'm just blocking things in, making sure that I'm mindful of my perspective and my staging. And yeah, just zone out and doodle. A couple windows in there. This is where the nib really comes in hand. You can get your little shadows for the interiors and your windows got blocked in really quickly. I don't really have a particular order in which I like to draw these things. It's just I'm being mindful of, you know, I am right-handed, so if I draw right to left, I have a risk of smearing, but I'm just kind of going with the flow here. And wherever my pen happens to be on the page at any given time, I'm just kind of going with it. Some fun foliage down here to start blocking in. Let's not get too carried away here so that I don't smudge this all over the place. Let's go back up to the top here, this main dome. Oh, I love these pens for this fun line variety, line thickness. All right, let's get that edge in. And as you can see, like my lines don't match up with very much with what I penciled in. It's like I said, it's just a guide. It's meant to make sure that you don't trail off the page and stuff like that. I'm sure many artists have had, like me, issues with drawing too big or too small. This way you can make sure that it has an appealing composition on your page. All right, let's get some of those details in here. So we got a bunch of arched windows. Those get narrower as the cylinder rotates in perspective. What else is on there? Yeah, these little pieces on top. Those are really nice. They'll give us a nice silhouette, a little perspective indication. And yeah, let's get those shadows in there. Yeah, starting to come to life here. All right. Now that I'm like relatively happy with what's going on here, we got to make sure that we don't mess it up. And now we can kind of start to go a little faster too. All right, now we got to make sure that we don't smudge the page. Let's get that other dome in here. Like another smaller dome. What a cool building. I think I sketched this building from life in 2011 or 2012. I spent 2 weeks in Istanbul just wandering and sketching, trying to figure out how to do this thing. Not much to comment on here other than just keep going. This is kind of what most people tend to zone out and just go for it. Another dome down here. More trees. Trees down there too. Okay. Now let's try to go back here on the left side without smudging. Get a couple dark spots in there. I think it's time for our minarets. Well, this is gonna, I should have started with this, but whatever. Here we are. Once again, there's some more foliage over here. Yeah, the foliage frames this this building really nicely. We're gonna have a lot of fun, nice greens down here. A couple earth tones combined with this like fun, like rosy building. It's gonna be really nice once we get to color. All right, and we've got our distant one. Just gonna trail that off. And one more here. It lines up in perspective with this guy here, so I'm just gonna draw a little plumb line. And you know what? Yeah, I'm just gonna end it there. I was thinking of adding in the one that's in the front here, but that's gonna make this like very boxy boxy composition. I actually love how organic this is turned out, so I'm just gonna indicate a little bit more foliage down here, trail that off. A couple more palm trees. Some indication and gesture of shadow. And some birds. Life. We're not going to add people to this one, so having something alive, some kind of animal or person in the scene just gives it a little bit of life, a little bit of flow, and also helps add a little bit of context for scale. All right, there's our drawing. So that wasn't bad. How long did that take? That was 15 minutes. So now we gotta dry this up, especially like the areas where I've gone heavier with ink. Those are going to be pretty saturated and take a lot longer to dry. So I usually rip off a couple little pieces of tissue paper while the rest is drying, and I just start like wicking the heavier spots. So I literally just make a little, whoop, there it is. I make a little wick out of paper towel, and I just apply it very carefully to the splashes and areas of heavier ink, just to soak those up. You won't erase them, so don't worry. This just helps the drying process speed up. This is pretty absorbent cold press rough watercolor paper, so it is going to absorb nicely and dry pretty quick. And did I miss any spots? No. All right, that should, oh, I did miss a couple. If you kind of angle your head into the light a little, you can see some sheen on a couple of these saturated spots. All right, that should do it. Oh yeah, okay. So I'm gonna let this dry a little longer, and I'm just gonna, recap on a couple things. So yeah, we used carpenter's pencil to block in our composition. You can see, from what we started with to what we ended up with, it's pretty close. Like what I wanted was for my focal point, the main building and the main dome here to be composed, within its minarets, hugged and nested down here by the foliage, and just kind of trailing off and vignetting into negative space. I just find that looks fun. It's funky. I always like sketches and kind of half finished artwork. So that's kind of, yeah, what I like to do. And yeah, like, while inking this thing, I'm being pretty loose, like not every single thing is exactly where it needs to be. Not everything is perfectly straight, but that's what gives it its life. It is a sketch after all. It's not in architectural design, it is just an observation and something fun and therapeutic to do. So I'm not too worried about, you know, its architectural accuracy. It's a gesture. It's expressive. So all right, let's check if this is dried. I'm going to take a paper towel and just help kind of speed this up here. Yeah, the last thing I want is this to bleed and smudge while I'm painting. So that's pretty good. Yeah, I like to dab over with paper towel on some of these heavier areas. Now it is I'm in Los Angeles here. It's beautiful and sunny out, and the air is very dry here, so things do dry quickly. If you're in a more humid, colder, damper environment, this drying time takes a lot longer. But yeah, I've never had issues with the ink not drying. And you know, if you overwork it while you're painting, it's gonna bleed. But I mean, that's pretty good. What, this was drying for maybe 2-3 minutes, and nothing's coming off on the page. Cool. Let's throw down some paint. So let me just go back to my sample image that I'm working from. I found a really cool photograph of the Hagia Sophia itself, but I didn't find one that's lit the way that I like. So I did find an image of the Blue Mosque that's right across from it. That's, you know, lit in like a nice appealing golden hour light. So we're going to use that as reference for the light and color. All right, let's get started. So when I begin the color, this usually goes a lot faster than the drawing. Who knows what's going to happen while I'm talking? I might totally mess this up. But I just get a little piece of paper towel or tissue ready so that I can just kind of, you know, wick out some of the water from my brush if I need to, and clean up some mess. So first things first, I'm gonna underpaint the building and add in the sky. So I'm just gonna get a couple colors ready here. So it is golden hour. The sun is starting to set. So we're gonna get these beautiful warm tones and these like cool purplish hues in the shadows. So yeah, I'm just going to prepare those. I'm using a burnt sienna, and I'm adding enough water to give it sort of a tea consistency. And I'm also going to prepare some ultramarine blue, because there is still a little bit of blue in the sky. And let's get a little bit more there. Same thing, a little tea consistency. That's pretty good for like your initial wash. You don't want to get too bold or rich with your pigment just yet. All right, let's get started. I'm going to take some of this burnt sienna and just start underpainting and getting in my light side. And it's important not to overwork at this point, because, you know, we just drew this thing. I'm getting a little bit of water in here just to kind of blend and wash it out. All right, let's get some of that blue into the sky. Not too much, because there isn't much of it in the reference. Let's get a little bit down here to complement and start getting a little bit of this like shadow area prepared. So yeah, this first step is just a wash. Nice little underpainting. Lift that up. So we'll just let this dry off a little bit. We don't want to be adding too much to it just yet. It's already starting to come to life. You know, you can't go wrong when you use complementary colors. So in this case, you know, orange and blue, or like, you know, earthy orange and blue. It just looks really appealing. It's what light and shadow looks like in real life, at its basic level. And building's already starting to come to life. So now, while it's still a little damp, just so that I can get some like funky bleeding and see what happens, I'm gonna take a little bit of alizarin red, because this building is, it is rosy colored, but it's not like as rich as this red here. But I think because I've got some of that burnt sienna underneath as a base, I think it's gonna actually blend in nicely and become a little more earthy. So let's see what happens when we get some of that pink in there. Ooh, I like that. That's fun. Yeah, that's doing exactly what I was hoping it would. Ooh, that this is where I get excited, when something just kind of starts to take life. And this is a reason I was drawn to watercolor over like markers or gouache or acrylic, is that with watercolor there's so much room for just kind of discovery. I find, you know, colors bleed together, blend together, and what you chose to do isn't always what you see on the page. Now, I'm speaking from personal experience. Maybe someone who's actually mastered watercolor would beg to differ, but you know, look at that. That's a perfect little rosy color. I don't want to overdo it with the splashes. I get a little carried away. I got to remember and be mindful while I'm talking here to not mess this thing up. This is a dangerous place to be when you start enjoying it and having fun with the piece. So because this arch is covering this area here from the elements, from my observation, it looks like there's a much richer pigmentation going on underneath this arch. So let's get a little bit heavier. This is more of like a cream mixture with my burnt sienna and my alizarin red. It's just kind of blending in with everything at this point, so it's not really doing what I wanted, but that's okay. Just kind of getting in some spots here. Like I said, this building has quite a bit of patina and aging on it, so while it's damp, if you just hit certain areas like a little more saturated, it starts to give the impression that some areas are richer than others, which would suggest, you know, aging and weathering on the building. Yeah, this part didn't work out so well, but it doesn't matter. Like this area is in shadow anyways, so I don't want to overdo it just yet. Once we start adding in our shadows, we're gonna see how much more saturated it needs to be. Maybe won't even be in the light. So yeah, I'm gonna continue with my washes here. These domes up here are a little bit of like a slate blue. Let's get a little turquoise in there, see what happens. I don't want to go too heavy on the local value, which is the color that the building is, that's not affected by the light, because I do want this to be like a dramatic evening piece. But let's get a little bit of that, kind of teal blue color in there, or local value, as we say. You don't want to go too much, because I actually like the burnt sienna that's poking out over here. That's, you know, my light is coming in from top right, and I don't want to lose that. Let's get a little bit of that into the aging of this building as well for some texture. All right, how are we doing for time? Okay, cool. We got 10 more minutes here to finish it up. Now, I gave myself a 30-minute timer just so I don't bore everyone, but we're not actually limited by time here. We're going to go as long as we need to get the piece finished up. So yeah, I would say I'm pretty happy with how this is turning out. I've got all of my my hues blocked in, or all of my washes done. Got a little bit of that golden hour burnt sienna in the sky, a little bit of that blue from earlier in the day. We got that like rosy colored texture to the building itself, a little bit of that slate blue on the domes. And I'm just going to let this dry now because I don't want any more blending once I start blocking in my shadows, because I want those to be a little sharper. But actually one thing we can do is get started with some foliage down here. Let's start mixing some green. I'm going to take some turquoise. I'm going to add a little bit of burnt sienna to it. Actually, let's get a little bit of yellow ochre in there as well to warm it up. It's a nice earthy green. Not too like, local value green, especially considering, we are golden hour, so there is going to be a little bit of brown to that green. And then we can always darken it by adding a little bit of ultramarine as we go. So let's start blocking some of this in, and it'll be actually kind of fun to get some like lost and found edges as the page continues to dry. I'm going to hit all the foliage with the same color green, and while that's drying, I'm going to hit it with a couple different colors. I don't want to go too much because I actually like the negative space of some of that line coming through down here, but I'm running out of paint. Yeah, because it's about the building. It's not about the trees or what's down below. I don't even need to connect to the ground. This is an upshot that's just kind of a fun little snapshot of the building itself, so I don't want to overdo it. So yeah, let's get a little bit of burnt sienna in there. Like I said at the start of this, one of my most used and favorite colors. It just adds a little bit of warmth into the foliage. And then also let's get a little bit of cool green in there as well. So I get a little bit of ultramarine. Ugh, oopsies, I've gone too muddy here. Let's try that again. Get a little turquoise, a little bit of burnt sienna, a little bit of ochre, and then get a little ultramarine in there. We don't need too much because that stuff is powerful. Nice. It's a nice little shadow green. And that'll give us those kind of soft rounded, big chunks of foliage to start taking form. Right now it's very aggressive looking. It's very heavy near the bottom, but once I start adding in all my shadows on my buildings, the value will start to tie in with these trees. Let's try to throw in a little bit of that alizarin red in there too, just to kind of balance it out, see what happens. I like to mix these complementary colors together. Yeah, there's always room at the end for touch-ups. I'm impatient. Like while the rest of this thing is drying, I just want to keep going, and that's usually when I mess these things up. See, as you can see, when I lay down my green here, it's still blending in with the rest of the building. I went pretty heavy with my paint, so I do need to exercise some patience here, otherwise I'm going to mess this whole thing up. And I just can't seem to stop. In the zone. All right. Let's let this dry. We'll probably fast forward this part in the demo anyways. Yeah, I can always add a little bit more shadow to that green later when I'm when I got my shadow color mixed up for the rest of that building. So not too worried about it just yet. I'll start sweating near the end where things start to kind of imbalance, but for now we're good. It's a wet one. Start getting our palette ready for our shadow pass. Yeah, I like to do the shadows at the very end because it's nice to tie it all together tonally. So I'll mix up one big color of paint for the shadow, and I'll hit the entire thing at the same time, and then do some touch-ups at the end if needed. It just looks nice when it all kind of blends together, especially at this distance. Like we're looking at this, you know, from across the pond. So all right, so as I get ready for my shadow layer, I'm going to grab a smaller brush. I've been working with a number 8 round brush this whole time just to block everything in. I mean, technically I could keep going with it. These are brand new brushes, so they've got a nice sharp point to them, but just in case, because as you may have noticed, I like kind of dragging the brushes on their side to get some like fun textured like dry brush edges. So I'm just going to scale down to a smaller number 6 brush just so that I don't make it too big and blocky. All right, let's start mixing up a shadow color. So I'm going to take a little bit of ultramarine, get a little bit of cool in there. But I also want to warm it up a little bit because, you know, golden hour, the shadows tend to kind of get a little purple. So I'm going to take a little bit of alizarin red and stick it in there, or mix it in. And just kind of see what we end up with here. Like I said, I want to get a nice generous amount because I want to be hitting this whole page. And the consistency, since we were doing all of our washes with like a tea consistency and the foliage down here a little more creamy, I want this to be like a creamy butter consistency, so that I don't wash away all the work I put underneath and I'm just being more additive. Let's keep going. That's too hot, too warm. That's feeling pretty creamy. We don't want to go full butter. Butter is basically undiluted pigment. So let's go creamy here. All right. I'm pretty happy with the color temperature of this, but let's neutralize it a little bit. I'm going to add some umber, some raw umber to this, and that's going to give us a more like neutral kind of gray. Just feels right at this distance. I don't want to make the shadows too saturated because then it's not going to look realistic. There is some atmosphere to consider here. All right. So yeah, sun is pointing at this building from top right. That means all of our shadows are going to be on the left side and slightly pointing down as well. So let's start with the big one underneath here. This is a more technical shadow because it's going to be in shadow, but also diffusing down this part that's underneath the arch. So yeah, I'm just going quick because I don't want my paint to dry, and I do like how some of this is blending together. This is another diffused shadow. It is a big rounded dome structure, so I want to be mindful of that. and keeping the harder shadows for the harder edges. So yeah, I'm just kind of drying off my brush and dragging that pigment across to get that diffused edge, or that rounded edge. Go a little faster. This is all in shadow. And get some of that shadow into the trees as well, so that we balance out our values. Let's get some on the minarets. Yeah, and I'm just dragging these shadows down into the trees as well. I mean, the trees are in front of the building, and it helps kind of show that, you know, there is building behind them. Helps tie it together. And you can see why it was important to mix up a lot of that shadow color. You go through it pretty quick. I'm gonna sharpen up some of these shadows at the end, but right now I've got my basic lighting, and you can see it really brings this from like a 2D wash into like a full-blown like three-dimensional image here, that you can really feel the drama of that light. Or, sorry, the drama of that light. And this part is awesome. It's fun when it starts to come to life. Alright, so now I'm just gonna do some final touch-ups here. I'm gonna mix up a little bit more of that shadow, but this time I'm gonna go a little more buttery, especially for that underside here. I want there to be a distinct difference between the underside of this arch that's in shadow and the actual cast shadow that it's creating. I'm gonna do my best to mix up as close as I can that shadow color. And yeah, let's get that in there. Yeah, that's cool. I like that. And now let's get a couple more harder edges on some of these spots that are darker than others, just to give it a little bit of a pop. And you know, your focal point should be your area of most contrast, so your darkest darks and the lightest lights, and that is, you know, the face of this building. So let's get those in here. Just lifting some of that shadow there. All right, so last but not least, remember I was saying that this area here is a little more saturated than the rest. So let's try and see if we can add a little bit more. Ooh, that's way too bright, but kind of nice. Just a little bit more saturation in that rosy color, because that is what we're observing. Cool. So last thing, there is a little bit of gold on these dome caps. So I'm gonna get like a nice bartery yellow ochre. And I'm gonna hit those. So that the whole thing isn't too monochromatic. It's a little bit of gold on top of the minarets as well. And let's just balance it out by injecting a little bit of that elsewhere. And let's hit that with some burnt sienna. Just to give it like a little bit of reflected gold texture. And now that I'm looking at it, just to balance it out, I'm going to add a little bit more darkness to some of these trees down here. Just to show that they are, in fact, in front of this building. So they're not as diffused as the building, suggesting a little bit of atmospheric perspective and depth. And yeah. What do you think? Should we call it a day? Is that a done sketch? I think so. One last look about my reference. This is the part that's fun. Usually when you're in the field, by the time you get to here and you look back up, especially during golden hour, the light is completely changed. So like at some point you do need to call it a day. So let's sign off, finish this one, and save some energy for the next one. So I usually just sign off with a regular pencil. Sophia Istanbul, Turkey, 2025. Thank you very much for joining.
Hey, Tom, that was amazing. Thank you so much. You're so generous. And I know everybody just went, wow, that was great. So did I know that you were answering some Q&A questions while the recording was happening? Can you talk to us a little bit about the kinds of questions that you were asked?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, a lot of great questions, and some of them more common questions I just took note of, and my fault for not explaining a lot of these things. But yeah, the three things that came up most frequently were questions about what kind of ink that I use, what kind of paper and why, and also just to reiterate what pen I was using for sketching. So let's start with the pen. That's an easy one. So I'm using a fountain pen in that demo. It's a Striata, Striata, fountain pen from the Desiderata Pen Company, and that's got a Zebra G Flex nib. The reason I love using that pen, I've tried all sorts of pens, jump between all sorts of different ones these days as well. But this is the one that I choose for sketching out in the field. It's reliable. There's good flow. I also love using a tool that I knew was handmade by somebody. I don't know. There's just something fun about that. But the nib itself, as you can see in the demo, it's got a very fine nib, so it draws almost like a knife if you're very light-handed. And it also is very flexible, so it almost has like the qualities of like a paintbrush that's like a knife. So that's the pen that I use. And the ink that I fill it with, I'm currently using a platinum carbon ink. And the reason I use that ink is because it's fountain pen safe. You do have to, take care of your fountain pen, make sure you clean it regularly, but it is a fountain pen safe ink. And it dries very fast, dries waterproof, and as you can see in the demo, I like to get to the painting as quickly as possible. So that's the ink that I use. And the last thing was paper. So I'm currently using an Etcher cold press watercolor sketchbook, A4 format. And in that demo, I was using a 140-pound cold press Canson paper, and that is like the closest that I could find that's similar to my sketchbooks. And the reason I like to use this paper is because I prioritize the painting qualities over the drawing qualities. As you can see, it's very scratchy when I draw and splashes and is a little inconsistent. I actually like that in the drawing. I like the kind of organic, expressive nature of that. But what I love most is painting with it. With a rough cold press paper, there's a lot of granulation. There's fun like dry brush edges you can get. There's just neat effects. So yeah, those are kind of the big questions. And then
Cool.
yeah, brushes, honestly, like whatever I can get my hands on. Round watercolor brushes. The ones that I was using in the demo are called Case for Making, based out of San Francisco. A little brush that I picked up at the local art store here. And yeah, I'm not too precious about the brushes as long as it's the right size.
Hmm. I noticed that the paint seemed to dry really fast.
Yeah, it was drying okay. I did, if you watch the video again, you'll notice that there's like a cut. So when I was mixing my shadows, and waiting for the base layer to dry, that actually it took almost 10 minutes, and I actually just cut that out of the video
Oh,
so that
I
we
didn't
wouldn't.
even notice.
Yeah, I cleverly cut it at a good time, but yeah, I took a blow dryer out and I dried
Okay.
the piece because I'm in the studio. It's a little cold in here, and yeah, it just wasn't drying as fast as I wanted it to. But usually, like if I'm out in the field, I'll just hold it up to the sun for a minute and
Well, that's amazing, Tom, and thank you so much for sharing that and answering those questions. And but now let's tell everyone about our super exciting announcement.
cool.
And so some people already know, but we're Tom's going to be teaching an in-person vacation workshop in Rhodes, Greece, September 18 to 22 this year. And as I mentioned, some people already know, and some tickets are already sold, but we still have tickets available, and we'd love it if you could join us. It's going to be amazing. It's I've been to Greece, and I know that it's like the sunniest place on earth with these intense whites and intense blue azure sea, and it's just absolutely gorgeous there. So Rhodes is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and we're going to be stepping back in time with our travels and with our sketches, because this city of Old Town Rhodes is a fortified city. It's completely enclosed in the fortification walls that were built in the 1300s in the Middle Ages by the Knights of St. John, the Hospitaller Knights of St. John. And we're going to be visiting the Grand Palace there that was built for the Grand Master of the Knights. And we're going to be visiting the hospital building that the Knights established there. And we're going to be stepping back even further in time to look at some of the ancient ruins. We'll be visiting the Acropolis of Lindos and sketching there, and sketching all the cobbled streets and gorgeous little shops, and we'll be visiting museums as well when we're in Greece. It's going to be great. Excited.
Yeah, can't wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, lucky you've been there before. I've never been to Greece. I've always wanted to go. One of my bucket list places to visit and sketch. And yeah, like you said, very much looking forward to the mix of like medieval architecture with like the ancient Greek ruins and also some of the more modern, like white style Greek buildings. There's beautiful marina close to the town as well. So like getting to sketch and paint some harbors, some boat reflections, a little bit of the architecture. Yeah, it's you can't go wrong there. It looks so fun. I can't wait.
Lots of Greek food.
And
Greek
food.
food. Come on. I love Greek food. And
Yeah, me
I
too.
have to tell you, the Greek salad that you get in North America with that hard feta cheese, no, forget that. In
Yeah.
Greece, they use fresh feta cheese. It's soft. It's amazing. It's
Yeah.
amazing. It's
Okay.
delicious.
Can't
Yeah.
wait.
Yeah, it's going to be super fun. And I know that you're going to be very generous with your teaching and guiding everyone through and all their sketches. And it's just going to be an amazing workshop. So people, You're invited. We have tickets available. There's a $200 early bird discount, and that ends on April 21st. So if you, but I don't even know if there'll be any tickets left by April 21st. But if you'd like the $200 early bird discount, you need to get in and sign up before April 21st.
Yeah,
So
'cause it's max 15 people, right? So
15 people maximum. That's it.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait. And if folks are curious, like something that I like to focus on in my workshops above and beyond just enjoying sketching, because as we all know, when you're learning out in the field, it can be frustrating. You're dealing with the weather, people, the lighting is changing. There's a lot to keep in mind. But yeah, like I spent the majority of my career working in animation in environment design, so I have a very strong foundation in perspective and also cinematic staging. So that's something that's unique to my work, where I'm always trying to kind of focus on something, like find a nice storytelling element where the light is just right and there's people interacting with the space. So we'll keep things light. We'll start mellow, and we'll work our way into some more complex urban scapes that include people, cars, boats, reflections, all the madness. But yeah, it's gonna be fun. I
It's going
can't.
to be fun. It is, yeah, because it is a vacation as well. So we're going to sketch our little hearts out,
Mhm.
but we're also going to have a lot of fun together as well. So really
Yeah.
excited, really looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Tom. Thank you so much for being so generous with this demo. I really appreciate it. And thanks everyone for coming out to play today. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care.
Thanks,
All right.
everybody. Thanks, Brenda.
Bye. Bye for now.